Welcome everyone to reading number 405 of the It's About Time Writers Reading series. Good to see some familiar and some still new to us faces here tonight. This evening, let me just make sure others are muted. This evening we're going to be hearing about history and place through an Indigenous lens, a conversation through their works with Ruby Hansen Murray, Laura Day, and Jessie Minkert. And our first reader tonight is Ruby Hansen Murray, who put together this event for us. Welcome, Ruby. Ruby, living along the Columbia River in a multi-generational commercial fishing community, has similarities to the Osage Reservation that Ruby Hansen Murray calls home. Years have knit her into the lower river estuary. She's a writer for the Osage News, winner of the Iowa Review and Montana Prizes, and a McDowell Fellow. Find her work in Cascadia, A Field Guide, Ecotone, and Allotment Stories from the University of Minnesota Press. Rivermouth Review, Under the Sun, the Massachusetts Review, Pleiades, and South Florida Poetry Journal. She holds an MFA from the Institution of American Indian Arts. Welcome, Ruby Hansen Murray.
Hawe dahe pashe, Ruby jaje abria, Huda mitsehi wajaje jaje abria. Siju washtake dawalang abria, Zanze ole mingshe, Puget Island dawa olia. Zani wawi hoipe kumbra. And I'm Ruby. I'm from the Shiju Washtaki, the General Peacemaker clan, and the Zanzole district in the Osage Reservation. And when I tell you, when I introduce myself in Osage, I'm interested in keeping our language vibrant. And I've been studying for a while. I've begun to use Osage in my poetry, and I've written some poems in Osage, which I won't read here, but I've used some of the words you'll see. And I'm a citizen of both the Osage and Cherokee nations. Both are in northeastern Oklahoma, and I travel back and forth. I'm really grateful to be here with Laura, with her connections to Miami in Oklahoma. Awewina Peggy, Ida Shia Apai for asking me to come talk. And I'm really grateful to read with everyone, Jessie and everyone, and look forward to hearing. So I'll just begin with over time. Over time. Last year, we drove an epic journey along the Mississippi, tracing generations backward to Osage homeland at Cahokia. We stood where the Osage met the French at St. Genevieve, the earthquake rift at New Madrid, watched Middle America walking, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer's Place on the Mississippi. We sat on the river's edge while families fished and barges crossed. We drove fields of cotton under blue-gray skies, white farmers in overalls diagnosed a tractor, GMO seeds on the floodplains, Nauvoo, Mormon testament to being run out of Illinois, South to noxious Christian at Cape Girardeau, drove into the rolling hills the Cherokee took from us, biker churches under the trees, Fayetteville's college brunches, into the land where the Osage Cherokee mingle, familiar as my name. We rested in the Osage, soaked up fireflies, bison, vast horizons, Handy's full-strength pop. Poked through remnants of oil towns, counted tanks and pump jacks, drove home past the great salt plain where the bison hunkered, home via bushy tan and black coyote tails tacked to a fence post beside the Alvord Desert. Today, an older white man knocked on our back door like country people know to do, a shoulder in blue plaid. DV stood outside. On this island, growing more Republican with blue-collar retirees, the old farmers, fishers, mill worker Democrats outnumbered. I'll stick with the freedom of 5 crows soaring, the yellow of the golden chain tree outside my door. Thank you. Tidal flow. The Osage is abundance, rolling waves of ocean bottom, layers of marine life compressed. The Osage is oil, the language of the Burbank Field, Naval Reserve, Keystone Pipeline. Captains of finance and industry killed Osages and manipulate for control, drilled and reaped the profits, made the mess, set sulfur burning, pump jacks clanking up and down, the heart-beating continuance, while cicadas buzz and fireflies blink. Before the Osages were removed from Kansas, before allotment, before statehood, Texas ranchers drove cattle through the Osage to Kansas railheads. Tall grass prairie, adding 3 pounds a day. Before blackjacks rooted themselves on limestone layers, before humans arrived, the Osage was abundance, rolling waves of ocean bottom. Where I live, you are neither fish nor fowl, neither fisher nor farmer, neither retiree seeking bucolic spaces, nor a homegirl generations in place. Walk to the river. In the house where Madeline lived 20 years ago, a couple eating dinner, the man in a white undershirt facing the window, his wife beside him framed, a dark buffet behind them. Spiders like stars between the boom and cab of an abandoned crane, the yellow paint gone ochre and rust. A frilly lampshade in the dairyman's house, an osprey on the nav lamp, the curving eave on a guest house. At Emmerich's, the cattle ranchers shape a barn by Temple Grandin and work cattle on horseback. The 2 bright yellow, red, and blue of Adirondack chairs on a deck beside the slough. Geese fly over, plaintive. You are here, you are here, you are here. Darkness. Yesterday we walked a dike road. The lid was off, abalone shell open, geese strung high east of us. A man with a grizzled beard down his chest, a crushed hat, plaid shirt hanging open, a log splitter. The fur in pieces beside the slough. He stood near a house with a fan of driftwood, the Virgin's palms open to us all. As we walked the dike, 2 eagles called over a swamp. In the years I've watched, the alders have become ragged, trunks holy and bare. The county has chopped down blackberries, salmonberries, snowberries full of birds, gnawed the limbs of an old spruce that sheltered deer. A snake flattened on the road, a smear of blood, black skin edged by a light underbelly. A quilted coverlet folds across the sky too quickly. We live with ghosts, salmon too in vast runs, sea lions barking behind. Under scalloped clouds. Last night at sunset, I walked west on sunny sands, color on TV screens, across a field of green. The tovers backed up to a jumble of cottonwood, their family contained. David wades in grass, searching the new calf. A bull stands by, one eye on the straw hat. These days, our rose sprawls a yellow fountain, buttercups nod to bird shadow. In the tumble of grass, a speedboat's lime hull. Grasping balance. In the northwest, female rain. Thunder is rare, lightning a static flash, clouds unroll batting. Up Alger Creek, moss is dry in April, sandstone cracked open. Skunk cabbage curls yellow, yellow tongues, trillium under elk hooves. Catkins, windblown pollen dusts our hands gold. Clouds of geese shrieking cries, the pasture squelches underfoot. 4th of July on the island. In the curve of North Welcome Slough at the old Anderson place, RVs assemble, country music, a fire pit beside the river, children and beach towels, a porta potty, no trespassing signs. Weekdays, the old dairy farmers walk back and forth to the barn, the black cat and 3 kittens hunt. July 5th, the dike road rims the island, miles of pasture, a frill of trees, the ridge beyond. John and Jared's houses are small squares in a sea of green. We sit beside a brush fire curling to ash, a coil of rusted iron. A ragged flame flushes a garter snake, tentative and smooth, breathing in an empty bowl of sky. Salmon berries. We walk at the refuge, the cow parsnip rising taller than I am, the hairy stalks, veined hoods shrinking as the flowers unfurl, leaves bigger than my head, each a starred perfection, while the oval petals of black caps nudge ripe salmon berries. For a moment when it starts to rain, I want to be inside. Think of IKEA, the yellow and cornflower maze of concrete warehouse, a warren of rooms, poof of plastic hanging lampshades, LED lights in all combinations, as if each could redeem the desk, table, room it illuminates. We continue while rain falls on 1,000 leaves, white butterfly petals of thimbleberries, tight fists of elderberries, magenta stems. The other side. On the bench above the Columbia at Celilo Falls, where the wish ram traded salmon, we track the Missoula floods. Ice Age water sloshed over the rim, rocks dropped along a gravel road. Cattle scatter in sage. Coyote stalks wild turkeys. A young man in a work truck rolls up beside us. What you see? Farmers picking up a conversation. Dave points out the animal on the hill. Yeah, he says, peering red-cheeked and sweaty, a compressor on the rig. I picture him hurrying home to drink a beer, shower, see his family. I wonder whether he's clear thinking or hate-filled. Would he think we, the couple in a maroon pickup, are just like him? And place as our, regarding our interior spaces as well. The house on 3rd. Words boomeranged around the dining table. Curved wooden backs of the Mangus chairs, bolted to wrought iron, sharp enough to scrape a bare thigh. Plates flew, recriminations we 4 suspended in between. At the front door, an abelia, tiny lily blossoms, dark pointed leaves. When my mother climbed a stepladder to trim it, bees attacked her, the rest of the hive inside. Reliquary. A mauve leathered skull, beak flying with raven, grass, black hides cake with mud, white eggshell cup, a moat, hummingbird feather, a vial of Olympic Peninsula glacier beneath, overflowing antlers, say John Steinbeck's pencil sharpened, dull, bundles of sage, leaves folded and curled, the mouse leg bones, a golden eagle spit, surveyor's mark from the road, the clang of metal teeth that binds us here. Refuel. Out of nowhere, honeybees in figure eights on a hummingbird feeder. When the sky is light at 6, purple martins gurgle, my wings lift, translucent, workaday. In the middle of the creek through waist-high grass, rising above mud, mashed dosh stow with no bottom, a flat pan between Sitka spruce and a bank engineered, cattails, entangled alders burst from worn pilings. Evening, a beaver, jambé, a periscope sapling in its teeth, glides to shore. The eagle, Huda, my namesake, terrorizes heron nests. Parents shriek rage and grief. We walk on pavement's false contours. When the river inhales, only the faintest rivulet sketches low tide. Pache kondakai, I intend to walk into the mud. Gache kondakai, Dave walked into the mud when we first met. Piggies. When the hay lies in long lines, the Americans cart their belongings onto the lawn. Clear glass, coffee mugs, toasters, a twin bed, brass headboard, clotheslines full of shirts, pants, dresses, each family's bonanza, past or present. The coyotes are cooking pulled pork at Norse Hall. The new people have unloaded tables of wares. The Warren family beside the tide gate, their usual banquet tables. Winding on the dike is a careening course of car doors. Midsummer, Norwegians take off their clothes, bonfires. In Pahuska, heat in the 90s, Osage dance in wool broadcloth, smiles across faces shining damp. Across the street, beside the ghost of the huge pine, a hedge of California lilac, a hand-lettered sign, free, a fiberglass speedboat and trailer, aqua with the olive patina of time. New arrivals. The newcomers think to paper over racism, years of enmity with resolutions, and we're better than that. As if the local people and the tribes don't know all that happened and count the losses. As if some upper middle class white people's idea of how right, just they are means squat to natives who've dealt with everyone from Fort George to Hudson's Bay to US Congress and their neighbors' side eye. As if these white people are the good ones, altruistic, as they settle on Chinook land, call it our beloved home. As if generosity is welcoming the nation for a Sunday picnic, erecting a sign. Just one more here. My body fleeting. We watched white flecks, birds far up against the ridge, bright against blue-green, a trick of evening. 7 birds in treetops above cut-off slough, nesting for the first time so far north. We walked to see them, earthbound, slow, DV, creaky, and me ready to spring forward, these legs strong. But it's arms we need, wings. We'll fly. our long necks extending then fold, so few wing beats, thermals hold us up. Great egrets making a way north. We say we're going to a new country, twisting toward each other as we fall. Kashena, Choba Doa Ekipshe Kombra. I just wanted to say that much, and thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Ruby. It's hard to keep up with the beauty of it all. In fact, I'm going to make a request of you. Would you be willing to read again the next to last poem?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. In all of them, there was so much to process. I was trying to, soak up fireflies with you. And that one in particular just seemed to just get me knocked for a loop. And I would love to hear it again.
I'd be happy to read it again. And you're thinking new arrivals?
Yes.
Okay. The newcomers think to paper over racism, years of enmity with resolutions, and we're better than that. As if the local people and the tribes don't know all that happened and count the losses. As if some upper middle class white people's idea of how just they are means squat to natives who dealt with everyone from Fort George to Hudson's Bay to US Congress and their neighbors' side eye. As if these white people are the good ones, altruistic, as they settle on Chinook land, call it our beloved home. As if generosity is welcoming the nation for a Sunday picnic, erecting a sign.
Thank you so much. We were talking briefly beforehand about, the theme here, and you were saying you're not shy and we'll be able to grasp your themes. And that one in particular is, well, I love them all, and I'm sure we all did. I saw plenty of action in the chat with people responding to your endings, your imagery. I feel like I've visited a place I've never been, and I can see it now. I think you are an amazing writer of place. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm very happy to have had Ruby suggest to have Laura Day read with her. Laura Day is a poet and teacher, a lifetime resident of the Pacific Northwest. Day studied creative writing at UW and the Institute of American Indian Arts. Day is Eastern Shawnee. She is a recipient of the Native American Arts and Cultures Fellowship, an Artist Trust Fellowship, and fellowships from Hugo House and the Jack Straw Writers Program. Day is the current poet laureate of Redmond, Washington, and I also happened to catch her latest award in the Seattle Times last week. She was awarded an Academy of American Poets Fellowship for 2023 for her work as Poet Laureate of Redmond. Her first book, Tributaries, won the 2016 American Book Award. Her latest book, Instruments of the True Measure, won the Washington State Book Award. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much for that really gracious introduction. And I'm so honored to read with these incredible poets. Very special too for me tonight to be able to have my work be in conversation with a fellow Oklahoma Indigenous person who's living in the Pacific Northwest. And it's always really exciting to see the way that all different poets, when we put our work together, it creates this really incredible kind of constellation. And so thank you so much to my fellow readers, everybody in the audience. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself in my language as well, and chat a little through my poems about how I utilize Shawnee language to get at a certain perspective around place. So Hoesi Pekonia, Kaka Hoesi Lasimamo, Laura De Nitesito, and Sawan Watawe Nedi. So I am also a tribal member from a tribe that was removed to Indian Territory, Oklahoma. And some of the work that that was just explored in that beautiful, beautiful reading set. My work will talk through that corridor of space as well, that a lot of tribes moved through what's now considered Middle America. And I thought a lot about the idea of place as one of the lenses. So in Shawnee language, the way that we say the word when is Taniwe Lakwa, and we don't really have a concept of when. So Taniwe means where, and Lakwa means in time. And that means in a Shawnee perspective, even time is a place. So we are an incredibly place-oriented people, and that's a real blessing as a poet to have had that perspective. Another thing that I think is important to note is that for Shawnee or Sawanwataway people, we are a citied people. We have always lived in kind of collective communities, which goes against the dominant narrative. In fact, early accounts of Shawnee folks were sort of shocked at the uncitied colonizing force that came with this lack of humanity. So I thought I would begin in that space. I'm going to read a few poems to begin about the idea of the city or living in community. And I'll begin with this poem, River City. Grasping for the home sense of the river city, I become increasingly enthralled with the heavenly city, ticking inside the clock's lavish precincts. Hours I did not count on becoming the river home I longed for. Flood of settlement subsuming the divine cities, our rivers exiled by their rivers, christened bucolic, baptized for dead fathers, but not ours. Trinity gates for each cardinal direction draft the divine city's parameters, our city's contingent on river. Beneath the dim crust of exile, foundation stones laid with sapphires glisten alongside rivers buried under soybean and wheat. No word for burial on the river's faceted tongue in the city where I stay. And in Shawnee, the word for a principal city, so a tribal community's main city, is Chillicothe. And Chillicothe is a town word that still continues to come up mostly in Middle America. So if you've traveled through that beautiful swath of kind of the middle part of the country from Ohio all the way down to Texas, perhaps you will have seen a Chillicothe. Shawnee word for principal city. In the case of Chillicothe, the city is contingent on the river whose flow is one of the four chambers of the name. We leave Chillicothe's at our heels, river homes ever loading and unloading. High banks to spare us deluge nestle inside the word. The principal city's devastation, frost beneath the flood, the many-faced town destroyers allot our city into severalty. Maps scuttle east, detailing imaginary cities and singing papery hymns to call down the torrents. Chillicothe's water from the Piqua, the Seota, sip from Paint Creek, from the lost meanders, grand wanders slip and red. Chillicothe is engraved on the tablet as first capital city. In laments, it is the lost capital city of our dominion. The word city called into existence, already existing, carved on the gates of the city, carved under the city, in the ash-charred lodges by the survivors of the flood. And what I would love to kind of talk about next, I think it was set up so beautifully, is the movement over space, and writing now about my home in the Pacific Northwest, which is such a beautiful and rich, also a water road place, a place of rivers, and a place where fresh water and salt become such an important element of personal and cultural identity. So there's another Shawnee term I'd love to share now that centers the next pieces that I'm hoping to share with you. And this is an idea that sort of comes from our storytelling traditions. And it's a way that people explain the way that place unlocks a memory. So historically, I think this is true for a lot of cultures where people who memorized huge pieces of oral tradition and story utilized place as a kind of memory palace and a certain unlocking. And as with many, many tribal nations, for us as Shawnee, you tell particular stories at particular times of year, and seasonal markers unlock when the story happens, but also place is the unlocker of stories. So one thing that I don't know people always maybe understand about removal, forced or voluntary movement of people over place, is that those memory palaces that people use since time immemorial to unlock stories, for my Shawnee ancestors, they were violently removed. So the hills that they would have looked to unlock the story, they were removed from. So there's this sense that you have to reorient into space and find a new way to kind of lock the story into where you are. And it means that that removal of kind of human ego is implicit in this statement, that you are part of the story because you are on the land. And the way that we say this, it can actually apply to a lot of things because it's a really kind of simple phrase, and it just means Ta'Telethiane. Ta'Telethiane just means like in place or in this place. And then Nemeleke. And Nemeleke means I start thinking or I start speaking. And it's a phrase that kind of means in this particular place, the story unlocks, you know, or this story is locked into its place. So I always like to just acknowledge that it's a privilege to live in another Indigenous community's homeland. So I grew up with deep ties to going back home to Oklahoma. But I grew up in the Snoqualmie Valley and right in the heartland of the Snoqualmie tribe space. And that means that my kind of memory palace, that Ta'Telethiane, is by courtesy of another nation's place. And I've always had great regard and respect for that. And even tonight, I'm calling in from Shawnee, from Snoqualmie territory. So I'm going to share a few poems now that I feel like engage with the space that I assume many of us share, which is kind of Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest. And I think that it brings that sense of this is the place where I'm writing right now. So this is the Ta'Telethiane that I stand in and, you know, hope that I can unlock a story in an honorable way. So I'll read a poem, and it refers to, in Shawnee, the way that we say wolf is mwewa, mwewa. It's kind of doesn't have that much connotation with English, and you have to really like, kind of almost like blow it out. And in Shawnee tradition, we have a lot of stories about the wolf, but it's very different to the sort of European role that the wolf takes. Really often in Shawnee, the wolf is sort of this figure of mockery and kind of teaching you a little bit about what happens if you're too prideful or you boastful. So a very different, right, cultural connotation. And it came into my mind as I was trying to think about how changed the environment that I was on is. So this poem is called Bad Wolf. I husk the houses from the land, each one as similar in size and shape as the battered crates behind the shipping store. The lake wasn't here with its jagged edges and dikes puffing like keloid scars, so I drank it. I uninvite to receive more clearly what the fringed prairie might have been, with its controlled burns and bone games and berries. In language class, I'm learning the story of the wolf, who is perpetually punished for his bullyish pride, made to pursue a hornet's nest and drown in his own reflection, snout gleaming with the honey he was hoping to bite. I repeat phrases and parse pauses from stresses. The markers I seek are nearly impossible to find. What is under this water and what was once water? Here where a trail once crossed, people gathered. Then the hop farmers dug axe heads and projectile points, still bearing the scar from the plow. Within 5 miles, the battles of the first treaty wars are under the barns and the soccer goals and the signs allowing recreational drone flying. At the prairie, a solitary Douglas fir's high branches start, well above my head, telling me it was once one of many. I must move the tendons of my chin and hold my tongue differently to string together the consonants of my language. To say wolf, I have to open my lips in a pantomime of alarm. And I think that what I'd like to do is I'm going to sort of finish up my set here with 3 poems that all engage with this place, with the Pacific Northwest, but through a lens of trying to understand the layers of movement and life across the land and waters that we live on. And I think of this as how you can land in a particular place and try and allow yourself to give it regard by looking at it as honestly as you can. So this first poem is called The Honest Tongue. Avoiding the stockade and bastioned gate, but inadvertently walking over the site of the gallows. Estuary cattails pierce a lacy mimic of the fort's dark-piked palisades. Red-winged blackbirds harry a great blue heron who flies with a shiver of cracked eggshells slipping from its beak. Some languages reverse past and present with sun and moon, black-lined days on the calendar, and the wristwatch is ticking goad, all coiled at the root. First church, first sawmill, first school and lending library, first brace of public executions, first house of brick. Where do we keep the great orators at present? Where land takes its name first from its people, then perhaps from the delicate mauve blooms of fringe-cap woodland stars. The next piece I'd like to read comes from a kind of fascination with the way that trails are appropriated into paths and then passes and then roads. So this particular poem refers to the historical trails over the Cascades and to the water, and what they were appropriated for over time, but how they've been used in different moments. This poem also, I think, is a bit of a meditation on faith and time. Burning the boats. In the glacier of paradise, sleek grottos of ice reflect color and depth. Solid state of matter shifting into movement beside the fields of fireweed and purple lupin as water warms to possibility. Signs of the notched paths from mountain to sea linger within the nest of the understory, though I am not here for anybody's wagon ruts. Still water thickens with mosquito larvae in the old wheel lashes. Walking into old growth blazes a path of emerald simultaneity, breaking and following a trail along the putty tan river, milky with glacial flower. The tallest of these trees were harvested for ships' masts. Delicate veils of white yarrow hold the margins. The mud flow moved through the wet river channel, hurdling 3 glaciers, whose fingernails scratched along the backs of the banks of the river as it gained momentum, creating hanging gardens. Shelves of rock are hung with ropey garlands of cedar roots, sipping mist, and leeches gathering in the potholes beside the maiden fern and sunset orange salmonberry. Green and white rivers flowed red, salmon, cedar shakes, industrial rust, and the russet algae of heating water. Crossed the plain that takes its name from the act of digging, where the camas once drew from the ground and held a fibrous fist of nourishment, forever crossed by tenders, and for brief centuries crossed by soldiers on the Natchez Pass, built as the one route of freshwater to salt escape during a sliver of the Indian Wars. Waterlogged pyramids and cobblestone obelisks are tucked into the salal and huckleberry. Etchings of webbed schooners marking the places of landing are embedded in the concrete. I am reminded of Cortez on the Yucatan Peninsula burning the boats. A preacher once hurled the story into my ear as an imperative of faith. But I have dipped down from the mountain path and into the shoreline. Creeks feed artisan wells of remarkable clarity, where lanky fringe cup grows in pink health. Burn the boats, and a welt of ash marks the way to the water road, beyond the beach head to the territory of vapor. And I will finish up with one short poem. This one refers most specifically to the valley that I grew up in, the Snoqualmie Valley. Lacamas Cannon. Erratics burnish with striations of glacial scour, kneel before flood crests. Cluster gold altars consecrated by gildings of powdery hop mildew ascend from levee moats. The tracts where camas was propagated, weeded and rebulbed, rest under the altered river. Thus, it is taken as a fact by those who shifted the deluge that the tending never occurred. Thank you so much. Yahweh, I'm so honored to be part of this poetry reading and part of this tradition, and very much looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This truly has been history in place with different, takes on it. I think all of us were sort of reveling at, the idea that our minds were blowing, the true about place unlocks a memory. And like, as you said, by courtesy of another's place to unlock yours. Lovely. We're so fortunate here tonight. Thank you. All right, need to shift. Let's see, another call for Steve Cybra to see if you're ready for your open mic.
Thank you. I have just a couple of quick poems. The first one is named Dice. Some call them bones, from which the first were made. Cubes of 6 flat sides, dimpled in unison. They skate over a broader way of life. People mean nothing in here. Dimples in dice sort the naughty from the nice. Hold both cold with contempt, none exempt. 2 tiny stone cubes weigh less than nothing. Those with nothing to lose roll the bones, fingers cross, live or die by the toss. And my second one is titled Cold Core. Animals go away to die. We die, then refuse to go away. Stay like cold cups of coffee, serving no one, leaving indelible stains on the birthing cloth. Winter always comes. She smiles under cover of cold white darkness, invites us to spend the night, fold back a smooth blanket of snow, implores us lay down in our own angel, spread our wings one final time. Then she covers us with so many frozen tears, we become tears. More than tears, we become a quiet howl of sacrifice. We run wet down the walls of Christ's house. Our blood paints over stained glass, pools in the halls. We are hopeless puddles, red with the smell of rotting happiness, thirsty as the full mouth allows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. It's always interesting, very interesting. I try to not look at the closed captions because of what they do to poetry. Sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're not. But your mention of the word coffee reminded me, Laura, would you be willing to put into chat, if it can be rendered, in English, the chila, it was turning chila coffee. the word, it made it like chila coffee, 2 words. And so I thought, I want to honor what this word really is. And so if you're able to put, how what it really is and not a coffee drink, I would so appreciate that.
I'll put that in right now.
Okay.
And some people may have been to a Chilla coffee at some point in their lives. If you've been to the middle of the country, in particular, the rural middle of the country, you might have crossed paths with one. There's actually Chilla coffees in Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas.
Okay.
And I think there might be one in Canada because we were up there too. But I'll put that in the chat right now.
Okay. Lovely. Okay. Thank you. Looking forward to reading that. Our next reader tonight is Jesse Minkert, and very happy to have Jesse here as a featured reader. It's been way too long. He often made the trek to read for us in person in Ballard. So Jesse, if you want to say hello, I will introduce you.
Hello, I'm Jesse.
There you go. So Jesse has been reading his work in Seattle since 1985. It was played on KRAB-FM, Crab FM, an alternate radio station. He was part of the Red Sky Poetry Theater. And in 2008, Woodworks Press published Shortness of Breath and Other Symptoms. His work has appeared in about 70 journals, including Floating Bridge Review, Poetry Northwest, Common Knowledge, Cream City Review, and Harper Palette. Thanks to Raven Chronicles, he was a 2016 Pushcart nominee. In 2017, Minkert's chapbook, Brookland, was published by Finishing Line Press. He is Executive Director of Arts and Visually Impaired Audiences, where each summer, in conjunction with the Jack Straw Cultural Center, he helps the blind and visually impaired teens write, perform, and produce short radio plays based on their experiences. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you, Peggy. I should say that that summer program this year finished its 27th session. It always happens in the month of July, and it's just completely exhausting.
I hear you.
Really rewarding in so many ways.
Bravo on 27 years.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of the school-age participants who are visually impaired, who every year come together to write a completely original radio play. But I'd like to proceed now to my own work so that I don't run over my time here.
Is there any other background we should know about it? Is this part of your, a new project? I know you've been working on some specialized projects.
Well, my count of current projects right now is up to 15. The last time I was on, I was talking about a piece that I put up on basically a music site called SoundCloud. The piece was a piece of poetry called Mosaic, embedded in a sound design. And if you have a chance, I'd love for you guys to check it out. This outline, stenciled on the city's stomach, this graffito rollered out, sprayed upon again. The city's empty surfaces thicken with strata of mouths uttering fleeting certainties. Echoes lost in fresh babble spatter on contact with the atmosphere. Smoke, exhaust, smells of urine by broken chairs contrived into toilets huddling in corners overgrown with ivy. What kind of contraption smears its phrases wide enough to expand like grease on stink? A yellow aerosol can, water climbing up the drains, tires splash oily grime on citizens of the sidewalks, faces half flesh and bone, half telephone. What can flush our poison from our air when our noise is the pill that kills the silence? It rings in our ears, follows us into the soil, calls out our names to carrion eaters who sing loud their choruses of catastrophe as they devour the hills of corpses we provide to keep them fed. They must wonder at the signals in our calls. They tag our ears and let us go. They track us and report their findings in their official journals. But our conundrum still eludes them. Our clangers, our viscous dissonance refrains choke the alleyways and culverts until no amount of runoff can wash the system clean. Existential ennui support line. How may we help you to pick your favorite flavor of ice cream? Decide what color of sheets to buy. Dodge a subpoena. How may we help you welcome new life into this troubled and predatory world? Explain to your superfan partner that you hate all sports except curling. Come out to the parent who never liked any of your friends or approved of anything you ever said or did. How may we help you eat with your mouth closed? Sit through an entire episode of Bachelorette Bahamas Getaway. Find a place to park where some moron won't scratch the paint. How can we help you avoid losing a night's sleep trying to figure out what you should have said instead of what you did? Find your most comfortable level in the hierarchy of power so that nobody at the top will lose a wink of sleep thinking about you, what you want, or what you might do to get it. How may we help you decide what words to have engraved on the side of the urn that will someday hold your ashes? But before any of that, may we please have your card number, expiration date, and secret 3-digit code from the other side? Every shell stands empty now, and rivers fill with sea. The nurses have remembered how their doctors summoned me. The summer won't grow any kinder under this blackened sky. My veins won't make me any blinder, spurt blood inside my eye, because the seas immerse the street, because the sky's on fire. The winter wind's freezing heat ignites a new desire. So let me rest on this clinic bed and let me think in rhyme. I'll light the fires inside my head until it's dinner time. Who inspects, who directs these novice capacities, who makes them gleam in the light of morning? Who studies them? Who wants them to rely on what someday they'll know if they invent their intentions, if they can smell their fortune on the spinning rims of storms that sweep up from the south, if their feet in their orthopedic braces can navigate the hard, loose gravel on the shoulder long enough to crawl to safety? Was this the fortune of which they dreamed after the bulbs went dim on the high, dark dormitory walls? Was this the fate for which they'd hoped? Are their legacies now scorched and still in a clutter of roots and fractured limbs? Is this what they are to us, these remains, this twisted, discarded debris? Why don't we answer? Why don't we tell them what came of their fortune? Does its heart still beat under the rubble? Is it hidden from their bruised and swollen grasp? What can they expect to hear from us? How long can they wait? For what do they wait? Is this what we told ourselves we intended for them from the moment we saw their faces at the first stuttering breath of dawn? None of us can afford right now to sink into the safe, warm well of nothing. The world of things demands our full attention. Ignore it and we'll die. Plenty of time for nothing after that. No time now to pretend the world of things will fix itself. But maybe fixing itself means getting rid of us. Most of us, at any rate. Whoever gets to stick around, we filthy, miserable, guilty few, might want to shift the blame onto the withered shoulders of we dead. We might even entertain the urge to respect each other, to help each other live, but that might just be hope, squeezing in a word or two, and we all know hope can render us in a second to dust. Could be that's the cynicism barking like a rabid mutt, to say the ones most likely to survive will be the ones with all the best resources all along. We all know who we are. But what and whom we know can guarantee us nothing if we let nothing take away the world of things. Over in the other ovary, a squall bruise that Jenny doesn't yet realize will turn into a hurricane. It's not what her mother told her to expect, this exploding tumult within. Pious men who'll never feel this pain want her obedience, surrender, someone to accuse while they stand in her room with their pants in their hands. In the hallway, inside the coat closet, the boy spit into his milk. The milk in its cup, unrefrigerated, had gone bad, had turned sour. The woman had said as she pushed him in, "Drink it, all of it. If it's not gone when we get back, the closet will be the least of your concern." The milk filled the closet with an acrid smell. The boy had hoped his spit might neutralize the smell of the milk, but it didn't. The coat closet had neither coats nor coat hangers. The bar on which the coat hangers would have hung was too high for the boy to reach. The ceiling slanted down toward the foot of the stairs above. A socket had no bulb, and anyway, the switch was out in the hall. He remembered when the man made him watch while he attached the deadbolt to the outside of the closet door. He drilled holes. He sank screws into the wood with the screwdriver attachment of his drill. The drill put out a high-pitched whine. "Here is where you'll be when we go out," said the man, "and where you'll stay until we get back." The man closed the door and shot the bolt, "and until we're in the mood to let you out." The woman stood behind the boy with her large hands tight on his shoulders. "Be sure to pee before you go in," she said. "If you leave a mess, you'll clean it up." But as he remembered her words, the urge to pee built up. He had nothing to pee into, and anyway, the closet would just smell worse. He braced his shoulders against the back wall and kicked the door with both feet. The door rattled, but otherwise ignored him. The kick had only made holding in the pee more difficult. He took a sip from the cup. The taste made him want to throw up. He pinched his nose and gulped down all of the milk. It sat in his stomach like a bowling ball. He peed into the cup until it was full. He still had more, but he held it in. He set the cup on the floor in a corner. He kicked the door again and again. The door kept rattling. His remaining pee came out and soaked his pants. He sat in the puddle and kicked again and again. He heard a splintering crack of wood. He kicked and kicked as hard as he could. The door flew open. It struck the outside wall with a bang. And that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Expect the unexpected from Jesse. Never heard him do one kind of reading twice. Never. Thank you. All
Thank you.
right. They always say, people are always in all my writing groups, they say, well, it's really hard to follow that, but somebody always has to. So Sylvia, you're up.
Okay, and I'll never apologize for a poem, but after that, this is just.
Oh, please. Don't apologize for a poem, but it's very hard to
Anyway,
match Jesse's
it's called
delivery.
Hold Fast, which kind of goes with what Jesse was just talking about, but I mean it in an entirely different way. Well, you'll see. Hold Fast. The Velcro of my mind has lost its stickiness. The myriad small hooks and eyes don't grasp conversations or what I've just read like they did years ago. But forgetting is not the problem. It's failing to see the procession of miracles that stream by me and through me each day. Not a failure of memory, but of attention. Not noting my knees aren't creaking today. Neglecting to savor each singular plump blueberry. Oblivious to the bees bumbling in the oak leaf hydrangea by the back steps. Between what the bees and the wind scatter, our sidewalk becomes a pollen-paved yellow brick road. I skip along it, long-term memories intact. Long cords anchor me to my past. That's it.
Ah, I heard an earlier incarnation, and thank goodness it's still got that pollen paved yellow brick road. Thank you. All right. Well, I am willing to open it up if people had any questions for any of our readers tonight. It's just been, they've introduced so many different ideas to us and so many wonderful images. So what I can do is, if you have any particular questions, can open it up. And the other thing I can do, if you're not willing to chit chat. Oh, yes, Giovanni.
This is for Jesse. What was the title of the existential crisis hotline? Was it just that, or because I thought that was pretty funny?
That was the title, Existential Ennui Hotline.
Existential ennui hotline. Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That would be ennui, ENNUI, I presume, instead of the way the closed captions wanted to render it.
Ennui. That certainly is.
Yeah. Okay. what I can do is, if you'd like, I can close the recording portion and then we can chat. So I will say a formal thank you to all of our attendees tonight. Next month, we have Danielle Hayden, Lana Hecton Ayers, or it might be Lana, and Risa Denenberg. And then on October, we will traditionally have a crossover event where we welcome Jack Straw writers, which, as Laura Day was pointing out earlier, Jack Straw has been so overall supportive that it's kind of united a huge community. And so it's harder to get away from, like, having someone, it's a rare night when we don't have some Jack Straw people here. And Danielle was actually scheduled to read with others from the 2022 cohort last year, but has been rescheduled for September, which will be the month before our 2023 Jack Straw readers. So, and we're already planning well ahead into 2024. So I will now close the recording portion and welcome you all to stick around and chat.